Well, hey there, welcome back to Work-Life Harmony. I have an amazing guest here for you guys today, where instead of talking about our traditional looking forward planning, time management, and all of that, we're actually going to be changing it up and we're going to be looking back. My name is Megan Sumrell. I'm a time management expert for women, and I'm on a mission to bring work-life harmony into homes through all things time management, organization, and productivity. And our guest here today is going to be talking about how we can actually create a practice with our memories, with all of our digital photos that serve us moving forward. So if you've been struggling to figure out what do I do with all of these digital memories, what are ways that I can organize them? How can I create, physical, tangible goods out of it if that's something I want to do? You definitely want to listen up here to Kiera. And also, I really want you to listen to how she shares this daily practice of looking at her photos as kind of a version of a gratitude journal, if you will. So let's go ahead and jump in. Hey everyone, welcome back to Work-Life Harmony. I have been looking forward to this conversation all day long. It is my pleasure to introduce you all to Kiera. I'm going to have her introduce herself here in a second and tell you a little bit more about herself. But I knew it was going to be a great opportunity to bring her on the show. It's kind of a different angle of time management, not so much from a time management side, but from time and looking back and our memories and the things we want to capture and store and hold on to. So Kiera, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I've got some fun questions that I'm here eager to learn from you today.
Well, I'm so excited. And just as you were introducing me that way, it just brought this whole feeling to me of exactly why I do what I do. I have watched time kind of slip through my fingers as becoming a mom and losing several people that were super close to us when I was starting our family. We lost my mother-in-law and then my sister-in-law
Mm.
a year apart, right? Like a year after we got married. So we were just starting our family, and I witnessed my husband's family basically completely unravel right before his eyes, and all that was left was his father and this new family that we were starting. And it really became abundantly clear to me at that point how precious time was, just watching my belly swell and watching the baby grow and then having her be born and seeing her face, and she looked just like my mother-in-law, and being like, oh my God, little mama just came out. Like, whose baby is that? But also realizing that generations still live within us. And there's some stories that are going to start building from watching my daughter grow. And it just became abundantly clear to me as a photographer, like I wanted to document that and learn ways that I could make it easier so I could tell her the stories and she could inherit these stories and know what to do with them down the road. And
Oh, I
we're
love that.
in.
And the fact that you said make it easier. So I was very intrigued when I first learned about what you did, because back in the day, I all in on all the paper scrapbooking, the creative memories in the scrapbook stores and all of that. And my sisters and I would like plan girls' weekends where we would just sit and scrap for, two straight days. And I have years of these gorgeous albums that I poured through before the age of digital photography. And even in the early stages of digital, where you then had to take your USB card to the drugstore, or upload to Shutterfly and get your prints sent to you. And my daughter was born, and so I was working on her baby album. And I will very openly admit she's 13 now. And my goal was just to do her first year of life. And I
Mm-hmm.
got up to month 11. And guys, I've been sitting here without doing the last month for 13 years. Like, come on, Megan, just do it. But this, figuring out this shift of storing our memories and all of that in paper ways, which was our only way to do it before. Now with this digital world, I get asked a lot, like, where does this fit into our planning and our upkeep? How do I stay on top of my digital photos? What do I save? What do I not save? How do I create and preserve not the future, but the past
Mm-hmm.
in a way that's easy and doable? So I've been testing and trying a bunch of stuff, and I feel like I'm recreating the wheel or creating something new every year. So I would love, because one of the things I know you talk about is how you actually set these goals and then what you're doing to keep them,
Mm-hmm.
and staying on track with it. Because it's so easy in the age of digital photography to be like, I'll do it later, because it's all sitting there on our device.
Right,
But then
right.
fast forward 10 years and we haven't done a darn thing.
I
with
know.
it.
Well, you're just making my heart beat. Like, so here you're so close. Number one, like, don't beat yourself up. Like
Yeah. No,
90% of
and I've
people
let go
haven't
of it a
made,
little. I'm like, okay, we'll get there one day.
I know, like 90% of people haven't made their baby book. It is like the number one thing people come to me for because they
I
feel
bet.
guilt that they haven't done it. And I'm like, guys, it's okay. And you do have the photos. Like that's the beauty of it. But one thing that I really love to lead with is that your photos, like they may all be on one device that you have. So you might have them all on your phone. That's where you're taking every single thing. And I like to tell this story about when I was leaving my career as a criminal defense attorney. I had my camera, my computer, I had my hard drive, I had everything laid out in my kitchen, just right on the front door. And I went and walked the dog at 6 a.m., turned the deadbolt on and walked down the stairs, walked around the house, came back up, everything was gone. Somebody came in my house, swiped literally everything off of our counters. We lived in downtown Boston. I should have known better back then. But they took phone, camera, computer, hard drive, all of it. It was all gone in 1 minute. And for me, it was a really eye-opening time. Luckily, I didn't have kids at that point, but it really changed my perspective on making sure I have those images backed up in multiple places so that if that happens, if there's a fire, if there's a flood, if there's some sort of emergency or your kid throws your phone down into the lake, like, what are you going to do? Like
As they
there's
do, yes.
less traumatic catastrophes that can happen where you could lose everything at once if you don't have it backed up. So I like to remind people that if you're using, like, say, an Apple phone and you have iCloud running and you think that that's backing up everything to iCloud, they say that's a cloud. It should be a backup. It's actually a sync. It's syncing your phones from your phone to your computer and making sure that anything you do on your phone is done on the computer and making it easy to access your photos on multiple devices. But it's not actually backing up everything the way you want. So if you deleted
Yeah,
something off
it's
your
like stage
phone, it's gone.
one of backing up, but it's not
Yeah. It's
like
good. I'm
permanent.
glad you have
Yeah,
it if you do. But like
yeah,
you need to have a different setup. So I always recommend having at least another thing like Google Photo or Amazon now has Prime Photos, which is free for Amazon members to have. So like if you're looking for another way to have an automatic backup of your photos, that's a good way to have cloud storage. But I always also use like external hard drives, and I will connect my phone to the computer and dump them onto here so that I have just another level of backup because I'm just so afraid of all of us taking all these photos and then not having them when we do
yeah.
want something to do
Agreed.
with them.
So let's say we even get over the hump of, okay, I feel like I'm protecting these memories that
Mhm.
I'm capturing. I know one of your big things is setting out goals for what it is you want to preserve from
Yep.
that. Walk us through that process of someone saying, okay, I've got all these years of digital stuff. It's paralyzing. So it's like, where do I even start? What is step one in getting this stuff organized and curated into something that's tangible that can be passed down generationally?
So I teach my clients to really start at what their goal is. And that
Mhm.
goal can change throughout the year. It can be like I'm coming up, my mom's turning 60 this year. So I know that I want to make her an album of all of these things that have happened. There's an actual deadline attached to that, her birthday, which is coming up soon. I know that I can backdate from that in order to have it printed in time, I'm going to need to send it out to shipping at least 2 weeks before that. And then back before that, I need to set up some time for me to start going through the images and finding them.
Right.
Another part of that, once you have that goal in mind, you can really be specific on what pictures you're going to look for. So instead of going back and looking at all my college photos and all the vacations I've taken without my mom,
Right.
I'm not going to even touch those. I'm going to be very
Right. Yeah,
laser
because otherwise it's
focused.
so hard to go down that rabbit hole, right?
I'm
Now,
not
what
going to
if you're
go in there.
starting from a, okay, for me, I used to
Mhm,
do annual physical scrapbooks. I
mhm.
stopped doing that. So I'm 13-ish years behind on having my memories sorted and documented and all of that. That's a pretty big goal to say, I want to have these things done. I want to have a physical scrapbook that's clearly dated with my thoughts and memories and just the photos that I want to make sure we have that I can pass down. How do I pare that down into something reasonable sized?
Yeah. So, one awesome tip is reframing what you think of as a yearly book. So, instead, maybe you look at yearly traditions. Maybe it's just every year you go to Florida. why don't we do the Florida trip for the last 13 years and take a look at how we've all grown in the 13 years and go specifically back and search those dates out. I'm sure if you are keeping your planners the way you are, you know when you were gone and you have a
All
general
right.
idea. Like I went on spring break, it's probably in February or April, something like that, to
Right.
go identify the date and then find the pictures that way and pull them all together revolving around a theme. A recent client of
Love
mine
that
just did it
idea.
around a holiday like Christmas.
Right.
She hasn't done the baby book yet. Her son's 3. She's super guilty feeling. And I was like, break it down. What do you want to do right now? It's December. You need to get something done fast. Why don't you do all of his Christmases? And you can see his first, second, and third Christmas and make it in a chat book, something easy, and it's done. And don't have it
That's
be so
really cool.
perfect.
Yeah, I think, if you're of my age and you're used to traditional scrapbooks, it is it's always the expectation is chronological in order, and we're doing it that way. Whereas maybe we get to have that change of, no, I want to capture all my memories from this tradition that I want to preserve over the years. I love that because, yeah,
Yeah.
and I was even thinking about holidays, birthdays, or
Mhm.
whichever holiday you celebrate in around the winter season, to be able
Yeah.
to collect all of that together is a really great idea. What are your best tips for organizing all of our photos and digital memorabilia?
Yeah.
'Cause I get asked all the
So
time, how should I organize it? I'm like, well, it depends.
yeah, so you can go down a rabbit hole. Like I think with all organization, it's kind of addicting at one point. You get
Yes.
started and you can be like, oh, and I can get even more specific and even more specific. And it can just take so much time and effort moving and adjusting and shifting things. When really, I think it's most important to focus on the MVPs, is what I call them, like the most valuable photos and videos that are like
Mm.
the things that if something were to happen, you want those. So I like to make sure I go through and look for those little golden nuggets and throw them in an album on my phone. So I use different albums inside your camera roll to start just shifting them over. So I know like these are some key moments that happened this year. I'm going to throw them in my MVPs. If you really are focused on doing a yearbook, you can be like each month, try to go through and pick your favorite 5 pictures and try to limit it down to not being so much, like it
Yeah.
doesn't have to
Yeah.
be everything. You
So you're saying the 23 photos I take of my dogs every day, I probably ought to pare that down a little bit
or whatever.
or
It's
whatever.
cheap now. It's cheap now. If you have your most favorite, save
Yeah,
it. Like, I
agreed.
mean, these albums over here behind me have they're all of my dog, like, which is really embarrassing because it was
Hey, I'm
recorded.
here for
It's
that.
all dog. So I'm not here to say you shouldn't take dog picture. Their lives are short. They deserve to be photographed a lot.
Yeah, right. And well, they're just so, I mean, I'm staring at her on her new little bed curled up. I mean, they're just so cute. It's hard not to want to capture
Funny.
those. Now, are there activities that you do on a regular cadence to stay on top of keeping all of this digital memorabilia cleaned out, flagging your MVPs or whatever that organization process looks like for you?
So this is like my favorite trick is called the daily delights. I
Okay.
learned this. I had a baby April 2020. So like the height of the pandemic, it was my second kid like I knew going into it that I was prone to having postpartum anxiety. And I had used during my daughter when she was born, this method of I captured everything just because I felt so overwhelmed by life. And I just documented the good, the bad, the ugly. Like I needed to see it all. And at the end of the day, I would go back and look at my pictures and I would do the heart on my favorites and delete the rest. I would like scan back out
Mm.
and delete the rest. And then what was left, I found was this highlight reel of my life. It was only the moments that brought me delight. And it became this practice, almost like a gratitude practice, and something that really helped me see that these days weren't that bad. Like it felt bad. There were some tough
Mm.
moments, but look at the smiles on the faces. Look at what's happening. Like, and in the whole, there was so much to be seen, and it would help me appreciate not only the life I was living and the overwhelm I was feeling because it was real. Like I could see some of the things, like it was a real thing happening, but also there was so many golden nuggets there. And in doing that practice, it really just helped to eliminate some of that clutter. And I could pick the one in focus picture of my dog, because the other ones they're all blurry.
Right.
Like, and doing
I
that act
love
of zooming
that.
out, you can get detached a little bit. So it's not so Like I hear people have problems with deleting ones. They just don't want to do it. But if
Yeah.
you zoom out, they make the pictures a little smaller. So all you see is the hearts, and you can select the pictures and like delete all the ones that aren't hearted. And then you don't feel so personal.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to like when my daughter was born, smartphones were kind of on the newer side.
Mhm.
And I mean, the countless photos that I would be taking all day long. And that first year, I was in a perpetual state of overwhelm as a new mom and anxious. And I now looking back realize I had postpartum depression. I didn't know that at the time.
Mhm.
Um, but I know for me, I tend to relook at my photos once a week, but I'm remembering back to when I'd go look at the photos, and like you said, it would bring such joy. It's like I think a different spin on a gratitude journal. It's almost
Mhm.
like a gratitude photo thing.
Mhm.
And I'm
Yeah.
realizing now if I had relooked at all the photos every day, I think I would have ended my day feeling very different than maybe waiting till the whole week. So I think that's a really interesting idea for folks to consider. How often do you, if you take a lot of photos like I
Right.
do, like you do, to maybe almost do that every evening for probably only
Mhm.
takes 5 minutes to go back and look at it all.
Mhm.
What a
It's
great
much better
idea.
than doom scrolling. I
Right?
really tried to replace
Yeah.
it, instead of scrolling on Instagram in the middle of the night and amping myself up about how bad of a mom I am because somebody else does it better, like, or whatever it
Right.
is, or buying another pair of shoes. Who knows? I rather instead control my camera roll a little bit and really get a reflection chance to see how much we've done and how much joy there is actually around.
Yeah, and even if you don't do like, even if you aren't a scrapbooker or a, photo album person, that one practice alone, I think
Mhm.
could be a very life-changing way to bring a close to our days, especially when it's felt like a lot of times as motherhood, the end of the day just feels rough, right? Like, and you forgot what a beautiful morning you had or, the fun at the park because by the time you finally just get them into bed, like you're done.
Yeah, just
You got nothing left to give. Oh my goodness. Now, I know you have some goodies that people can grab to help kind of get started on thinking about this. Tell us about that.
I have an intentional memories workbook that a lot of my clients have been using, especially in the beginning of the year, but you can use it at any time. It goes really well with what you do. It's really like mapping out your year in advance and taking a look at some events that are coming up so that you
Mhm.
know when to have your camera ready. I'm all about saving time by doing less. So I think it's really important to not be taking pictures every 5 seconds of every day because you don't necessarily need that much in your camera roll and in your life to go through. So it's getting a lot more intentional about what we're actually documenting. So by looking at your year in advance, you can see like, I have a few vacations coming up. Oh, it's the first day of kindergarten or the last day of school, or these are some major milestones I anticipate, or we're going to be losing teeth like somewhere, you
Oh,
can
yeah,
start
yeah.
to like map out some of these things and use this workbook to document when things happen too. So I can say like, oh,
Okay.
March, my daughter lost her third tooth, and just like make a little note of it. In the workbook, there's also a page to reflect on the year past, and it's a great time to take your camera roll and use that as your reflector. So you basically go in again, zoom out, look at your year in advance, and you just can go in by month and get a recap of everything that happened, especially if you're taking pictures on a daily or weekly
Right.
basis. You'll
Right.
know the vacations you took. You'll know the people, the family who visited, the milestones, like they learned to ride their bike. You might not have thought to write it down, but you might have a picture of it and you can
Yeah.
start to use your camera roll as your reflection point and map it out there. This workbook also helps you get like reflective on your life and start to weave in some of the stories. We're big Swifties over in my family, so I pulled it together to call it the key eras of your life. So I like to talk about those pivotal moments that really have changed your story and your trajectory. Like, I feel like as humans, if you're living a full life, your life is moving and changing every day. But there's some big moments that start to weave together that when you look back, you can see how it's framed your life. So I have a couple pages in there, like with this exercise to look at these pivotal moments in your life. Just pick 3 of them and describe what happened, where you were, the places you were. And then there's a spot to write down if there's pictures of that time. Like maybe it's when you moved
Mm.
to college for the first time by yourself and you have a picture of your apartment and you want to share that, but where is it? It gets you that chance to think about, write down where it might be, and then remind yourself to back it up. And there's just a great way to just start collecting and thinking about these stories in a different way. So you feel like
Right.
you're making progress.
Oh, I love that. This has been so helpful for me because I've been doing well at staying on top of like organizing and deleting and all of that. But I love this ideas of being able to reframe what it is I want to group up and maybe create an album around, and this idea of the workbook. Because I realize
Yeah.
I used to use my calendar for that years ago, but a lot of times these events pop up that aren't related to an event on my calendar. So I feel like your
Right.
workbook brings that nice kind of missing link that brings the photos and the calendar part together
It really
into
does.
one place. That then, if we do want to sit down and create something physical, we have this beautiful workbook to help guide us through, dates and memories and thoughts and things like that around that. So
Yeah.
special.
And you can easily
Oh,
throw it into your calendar so that when you're storing
yeah.
that for the year, you have that paired with it. It all works together.
Oh, fantastic. Oh my goodness. Thank you so, so much. And friends, we've got a link in the show notes for where you can go grab that. Is it an easy URL to throw out there and
Yeah.
share? Okay, great.
Well, I don't know that I figured out the URL. So
Okay.
let's just do the link.
No worries. We will have the link in the show notes where you can go grab your workbook. I know I'm going to go get it right now and think about where I want to fit this in with how I'm kind of doing my memories. Because I'm always so focused on helping people with planning and future and making sure, we're not getting overbooked, overscheduled. But it's so important to remember that time to reflect and look back, right? Planning and thinking about and having our relationship with time doesn't always just have to be a future
Yeah.
event. So I love that you are bringing that importance in of that reflection back. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Megan. I'm so excited to connect.